So first it's Ursula Biemann, because unfortunately she could not come, so we have a video of her. After her is Lena and Sarah and Susanna.
Okay, so we play now the video.
Okay. Ursula Biemann is an artist, writer and video essayist based in Zurich. I know Ursula, I think, for almost 30 years now, and I'm happy that she participates here. Her artistic practice is strongly research-oriented and involves fieldwork in remote locations where she investigates the political ecologies of forests, oil and water. So the questions of resources and the research of resources has been very important to her. Her video installations are exhibited at the International Art Biennales of Istanbul, Liverpool, Sao Paulo, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Montreal, and in museums worldwide. In 2020, she has a solo show at the Museum for Modern Art in Nice and in Buenos Aires. Okay. Ready for the video.
Hello, dear curators, and hello, audience out there. Thank you very much for letting me be part of this event. I really appreciate it. We are showing Acoustic Ocean in this exhibition, a video which explores the sonic ecology of marine life in the Northern Atlantic. It's about the fragile interactions and responses between human and non-human beings. For this, I have created the science fictional figure of an aquanaut who enters in communication with the submarine living world. The performance was filmed in the stunning landscape of the Lofoten Islands in Arctic Norway. She is a nature culture figure, at once an indigenous Sami marine biologist wearing an orange deep-sea diving suit and a reindeer hood. She is equipped with all kinds of hydrophones, parabolic mics, and instruments for acoustic reception, recording, and mixing. This aquanaut lays her acoustic instruments out on the rocks and in the sea, intercepting the vocal signals marine beings are sending through. The hydrophones function as external organs, enabling her to deeply immerse herself in the aquatic habitat. There she adjusts frequencies to capture the dense sonic signature of entire ecosystems. Spreading her sensors out into the deep, she tunes into the transmissions of marine species. The high-tech instruments are put to good use for advancing the deep local knowledge of the natural world. Her gestures activate a human relationship with animals and other biological forces. With her long sensors that function as outer organs, she is linking herself with the instruments and the organisms she examines. There is no scientific separation that would detach her from her object of investigation. Carried by the wind, her songs are reaching far over the ocean. This is how the Sami communicate with the natural world. There is a history to the hydrophonic technology. Towards the end of World War II, scientists discovered a deep sound channel in the ocean that allows for low-frequency sound to travel great distances, the so-called SOFAR channel. The Allies had installed hundreds of hydrophones along the mid-Atlantic ridge to spy on the enemy submarines. They also captured a sound in this channel that they couldn't identify. It turned out to be whale songs, communicating over thousands of kilometers across the Atlantic. In the 1990s, with the end of the Cold War, the US Navy permitted civilian scientists more access to the equipment in the SOFAR channel for the study of marine mammals and their vocalizations. The sound recordings I'm using in Acoustic Ocean were made by scientists in the 1970s. Today it would be impossible to make such recordings. The sonic pollution from maritime traffic and deep-sea mining and drilling in the oceans is way too high. Environmental sounds have often been neglected in video recording by deep-sea divers who tend to focus on the visual appearance of submarine life. Yet for the sea creatures, the acoustic dimension is far more important than eyesight in their dark environment. For a long time, it was assumed that sea creatures are mute because their frequency of communication often exceeds the human hearing range. But more advanced acoustic technologies now give scientists access to this hidden dimension and help to interpret marine songs and other submarine semiotics. One of my objectives of Acoustic Ocean was to experiment with poetic and speculative narrative forms to better explore the unimaginable changes occurring in the ocean and the atmosphere. In search of a new language, the crucial question that has emerged is how to reframe the relationship between the artist-author and the non-human world. The instruments, whether visual, acoustic, or digital, define how we perceive and think about the world. Art and the natural sciences have that in common. There is a parallel between the Aquanaut scientific instruments and my artistic tools for sensing and recording the non-human world. Rather than adopting the posture of the authorial commentator, I take up a sensitive position of sensing the environment and listening for replies. The artistic gesture is that of rewriting a script for interspecies relations, and by doing so, Acoustic Ocean suggests that the indigenous scientist and the artist are both vitally important explorers and mediators of the contemporary understanding of our planetary ecosystem.
Okay. Does anybody has a commentary or a question to what we have seen? No commentaries? So I would like to end this, to leave it as it is, and would like to welcome Lena, who is next. Lena, there are some connections, I think, to Ursula's work and to this Sami reindeer herding. You and Ola, your partner, live on the fells of northern Lapland, where no roads can reach them, and you work together, surrounded by natural phenomena, you wrote in your bio. You work as an environmental artist, and Ola as a reindeer herder. And I remember sometimes we had an email exchange, and you sometimes wrote me that life is very hard, especially in winter, and that you have a lot to do. So you are also a doctor of arts and a researcher, and you work as a mentor in Ars Bio Arctica residents in the Arctic zone. So, and you also have exhibited as a visual artist since 1988 and produced a lot of artworks. So, hello and welcome.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm not so used to use that kind of technology, but I will try to show a PowerPoint to you and explain a little bit more about how I have made that piece of art what is there in the exhibition, and I'm very happy to participate and follow that event. And now I try to put my screen full and start to show my PowerPoint. Oh dear. Maybe here. Oh, did I do it? Do you hear me? I hope so. So, my story as a new kind of artist started on a landscape like that, where I was as a tourist. And I was enjoying that emptiness and feeling that there is nothing, so that it's like a wilderness. And I came from a south, just having my holiday there. And on my trip nearly 20 years ago, I met Ola, who is now my partner and husband. And while he was watching the same landscape, he said that it's too tight. And there is not enough room to him. And that was the first like a starting point, so that how come we can see and feel the similar landscape in so different way. And for Ola, that landscape is his living area, where he is living during all the seasons and carrying all the historical memories, and his everyday life is very much connected to the landscape because he is living with the reindeers. And while putting those our different views together, I started to be a researcher. And there is an interview about my way of doing my research in this methodology book, the interview is made from Tere Vaden, and there are some points which I will point out now how we are doing that dialogue with Oula. So the first point is so that we are living together. So I also feel the reindeer life, how it's connected to wind and to snow and all those things which come from the nature. And while sharing that everyday life, it means that those elements around gives a time for me too. And then in the everyday life there are many cultural traditions which are new for me because I come from the south. So that is like a basic situation which gives me many questions. And when I ask those questions for Oula, so then he has like a reason to think about his life, and that's why I start to be like a secretary, so that when Oula is answering to my questions, so then I write or put them down somehow, and mostly those answers come like a text messages, and now like emails and photos when he's up on the hills, and sometimes or mostly he's answering my questions, so that there might be a lot of time between when the question and the answer. And then what I'm doing, I try to conceptualizing the answers so that the new audience can take them, and then giving an expression as using my artistic knowledge. And some examples. So this is a photo and a text message which Oula has sent, and it's in a simple way he is telling that is his home. And it means that it is his home is all those hills where his life is including that landscape. And then there is an example, a photo and a message which says a poetic image of life. And in a reality, living with reindeers is very practical way of living, but it is poetic at the same time, because there is so many movements and so many qualities on it. And one more image from our video, which is now there in our exhibition. So this photo is from the middle of the summer, and the message, and the little reindeers decorate the hill like little flowers do. So the landscape without reindeers, it's somehow too empty. So it's clear so that Oula's life is so much together with the reindeers. And one more example, about the everyday life in the middle of the summer, and the message: they came, they stayed, they left. And this is the there is a long history of changing a place, and because the cultural tradition is a nomadic, but nowadays they can't really follow that tradition so much as they would like to do, but they still have that way of being on a way all the time, and this photo is also exciting to see that how times those goes together, so that there is that landscape where it might be similar during hundreds of years, and then there are dogs which are also part of that everyday life, and then there is humans, and then there are those technical equipments, and also the phone which Ola has used while taking those pictures and sending those text messages is a new technology. So it's very interesting how different times goes together. And there is an image and a message which says that, as Juhan Tuuri said, laughing landscapes. And that means that Juhan Tuuri is one of the early writers who wrote a book more than 120 years ago, which was telling about it was named that story of Sami, and it was Juhan Tuuri were explaining reindeer herding culture, and saying that landscapes are laughing when reindeers has a good situation there on a landscape, and Ola has putting Tuuri's words on to that view which he's taking in the beginning of the summer, beginning of the winter, when there is a valley where his reindeers need to find food under the snow, and this snow is very good quality now. It means that it's not too icy, and there is not too much snow, so that the reindeers can eat through that snow. And then Ola knows also so that the contact with the earth and the snow is good, so that it's not too wet or too icy, and that means that this landscape is laughing to Ola now. And one more image in the middle of the winter. So, and Ola's message: the wind brings concreteness. It is an arresting speed, and really, wind is something which we can't control, and it can change the atmosphere during the summer, and in a very dramatic way during the winter, because wind has so much contact with snow, and that means that there is so many elements which human can't control. And then sometimes all the landscape is in a mist. So there is times when everything what you are looking is so that you can't see it anymore. And Ola has taken a photo about that kind of situation and saying that this whiteness outlets my humanity. So that is something which I feel that the lifestyle keeps human somehow humble, but at the same time he has to be on awake all the time. So there were some examples about our video, which is made from those answers which are somehow answers to my questions, but at the same time those messages and photos are like individual thinking of Ola's while is on hills. Now I try to stop the share and hope that you are still there.
Thank you, Lena, for this nice introduction into your thinking. You said that you started from these different perceptions of landscape which Ola and you had, and you chose a very personal and yes, maybe even intimate and poetic way. You chose a dialogue, or a reaching out with computers and to establish a conversation or thought. Can you say something about your real aim? Were there also political reasons in a certain sense? I mean, did you want to understand Ola's world personally, or did you also want to make a political issue about this world that we are currently losing in a certain sense? As I said before, you show that which is actually at the verge, which is, it's still there, but also not anymore. And as Ola says, that it's not enough place, that's maybe a sign.
Yeah, actually those all reasons are together. I mean that the question why I want to understand is that it's so that I see that there is so many important elements which are in a very sensitive position. So on that way it is political, yes, but I also see that in our dialogue Ola is more artist than me, but because he is so busy doing his reindeer herding, so I feel that somehow my duty is to help him and be as a secretary.
In this dialogue, so in this, you see that you in a certain sense are his secretary, and this is in general or for this work? In general, yes, because how we are working in a similar way, so that I guess that we both of us we could not do that alone. So there we need to be those questions and answers, and then like a common interest to put it so that others can also see. Thank you, Lena. It's really interesting what you say. I mean, maybe I wouldn't say secretary, maybe more mediator. Or you
Okay.
try to mediate, it's against this artist image, but you do it together. And then I think in a certain way, for me what to say now is what I tried to say before. It is this technology of caring, that you not only care for each other, you also adopt this technology of caring by these emails and WhatsApp. You use technology as a technology of caring. That's yeah, maybe that's
it's very mixed. Yes.
okay. Thank you, Lena. We have to end here and welcome Sarah Burger, who is next. Hello, Sarah.
Hello everybody.
I don't know you personally, but I think you live also in Zurich, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that's true. We haven't crossed paths yet. I mean, I saw you on stages when you presented at the Hecking Basel and also Rasa, but we didn't talk with each other.
Yes, I know your work, and it's quite an important position, I think, actually for Zurich too. So I'm happy you are here, and I can moderate this. But I realize that I don't remember you from openings or whatever. You have been studying philosophy, comparative literature and linguistics in Zurich and Berlin, and later on I understand you studied then arts in Geneva. So in 2017 you finished your PhD in artistic research at the Kunstuniversität Linz, which cooperates with the Zürcher Hochschule of the Arts in Zurich. So you have this background deeply. So, okay, I would say begin with your presentation.
All right. So I open my screen to everyone. And first, because the work I'm presenting in the exhibition is called Unearthed, and is it working, the screen?
Yes.
Very good. The work consists in 9 fabric objects. Here you see one of them, which I buried in different places. And before starting to read the text and showing you a video, I just click through some images so you get some impressions what the original objects look like, and also how they looked during the process. Now my computer is hanging slightly. Yeah, here for instance you see one of the objects, actually the first one after having been buried 5 times. So you see the fabric really disappears. And sometimes there were also kind of still lifes that happened during the excavation and burying processes. And then there are also some images that will make sense when you're listening to the text and later on reading. And Yvonne, I exercised the text, so I think I'm within the time frame, but if not, you just...
Yeah, good.
And with all these burying places, I didn't work with GPS or something technical to refine the places. So the video you're now going to have a look at shows the only 3 times where I didn't find back the object. What does a work of art consist of when it disappears, when it completely changes its shape, when it becomes something it was not at the beginning? Unearthed. 9 Sun objects made of biodegradable fabric, buried in 9 places. A work about material properties, duration and places, about disappearing and the things that appear from within it. Any natural fabric made from cotton, wood, or other plant fibers will inevitably decay. Depending on the consistency of the fabric and the tightness of the weave and threads, it takes different time frames until bacteria and fungi subsume it. Fine root networks make their way into the weave, taking root, starting to loosen the fabric, feeding on the fibers, and gradually dissolving them, transforming the object, the fabric, into completely different states. Nothing ever disappears. I had asked the geologists to compile a list of sites in Switzerland where different materials from different periods of time are found. I selected 8 places. Glarus, where I grew up, its calcareous rocks have been long familiar to me. In Benken, close to Aarau, there is a disused plaster stone quarry. At the foot of the dam of the Marmorera Lake in the canton of Graubünden, basalt can be found, which was formed in the Tethys Sea approximately 2 million years ago. The bedrock in Valle Ventina contains silicat. In Bec, in the canton of Vaud, there is a salt mine, and in the Jura, in the Val de Travers, a shattered asphalt mine. Also, in the canton of Glarus, in the real part of the commune of Schwanden, there is a field of contaminated chemical waste from the time of first industrial textile dyeing and printing. Finally, I would bury one object in Zurich on the outskirts of the city near a motorway junction, and another one in Berlin, since I was living there at the time. I wanted to relate the materials and time layers of the places I had chosen to the textile objects, to observe and experiment how a work changes its form and expands, while the original objects fade away. Thus, the project was a collaboration between me, the fabric, the swooning threads, the sites, their song, their stories, and all the unforeseen influences and circumstances. I initiated a system, exposed its parts, became part of it myself, observed and reported how the individual fabric objects came into being, while at the same time disappearing. Along those attentions, I have learned various things about the objects and the places I chose. I have travelled alone or accompanied, and while being accompanied, I discovered new aspects of the project through the people with me. From the very beginning, it was clear that the individual objects had different connections with me and their surroundings. Some of them have been closer to me, others have remained estranged and suspicious. I have sympathy for all of them. Still life paintings are images of devotion, of pausing and capturing time, of transience, even death. I only understood that Unearthed was also about dying when the first object had actually disappeared. Until then, I had single-mindedly gone to the place in the forest where the first object was buried, dug it up, looked at it, observed it, thought about it, spent time with it, photographed it, and buried it again. I had routinely returned to the site in the forest and started digging in the muddy, sandy earth. I knew that the object was transforming here fast. When I had visited it before, its material had already been very wholly wrapped between the threads, interwoven with mycelia. I took a bit of soaked fabric between the thumb and index finger to understand while touching that the fabric is about to dissolve, that it cannot withstand the pressure of touch. I had not previously reflected on how it would be if the objects were actually no longer there. Now I stood there, alone in the forest, for the first time looking for something I would not longer find. After months of working out the concept, planning and describing, I began to understand with my hands. I cut the first pieces, combined the color of the fabric with the colors of the thread. I was spending hour after hour, days, long days, with the machine wiring, regulating the speed with the foot, sometimes completely one with the fabric, the eyes, the hands and the pedal, then again faltering, because the eyes started to think about the hands and forgot the foot, or the foot pressed too hard, the fabric cooked, the thread knotted. I broke needle after needle and wore glasses for protection. The distance would have been visible even without them, but sometimes the metal splintered. In some moments, I steered the fabric with my fingertips. In others, the impetus came from my shoulders, my back hands tectonically milling the piece of textile under my hand and the landscape into the fabric. Outside, the ground thawed and the land became light again. Finally, the 9 bundles were ready, each one brought to wholeness and all folded and sewn together until the feeling emerged that it was good enough. Working with these textile objects and their tectonic drawings stems from reflections on architectural structures from different time periods, on ancient monuments and statues in stone, along with all the folded signs and traces that these humans leave on earth since we started walking. Step and sign emerged simultaneously. I introduced the new environments. My objects are alien, different, standing out in shape and color. Once buried, they merge with the landscape. The fabric soaks up the earth's moisture and seeping rainwater. It becomes part of the earth and begins to host folded, worms, spiral. It took some visits and excavations until I learned to decipher with my eyes and through the photographs, uncovering a growing admiration for the different worlds and structures in the folded, root branch, nail-bitten pieces of fabric. Several times I sat in the forest, my gaze horrified, protected by loneliness or unnoticed by company. Overwhelmed and enervated that suddenly my intervention seemed uniform. Fabric to earth. The weather is always good, sky blue. As summer progresses, the woods become greener, denser, more luscious, uniform. Sunshine does not suit photography. With only some temporal distance to the photographs, I began to consider the objects as still lifes, as landscapes consisting of particular pictorial moments, roots, clumps of earth, mushrooms. In the leaf-fan sunlight that falls on damp, earthy folds, making them shine, with snails gleaming slimy. Going back in Earth's time, all land had been one, a single huge continent, only gradually shifting into separate pieces. Around it, an immense sea, one of its oceans Thetis, named after the Greek Titan and sea goddess. At the bottom of the massive dam of the artificial lake in Marmorera, there is basalt rock formed in the Thetis Sea. Not really noticeable to the untrained eye, the basalt lies just below the heavy wall with a curvy road above it, on which post buses, old-timers, convertibles, motorcycles and trucks pass by every day. They often stop at the top of the dam, since it is huge and holds it with unnatural beauty laid together. The basalt at their feet was unnoticed. I quietly bring my object into the forest section opposite the basalt. The side faces the stone, The stone faces the south. The mountain rises steeply here. A small, large forest has plowed its root on unspeakably loose earth into the rock, the ground gently prickly. I look for a suitable group of trees. I find it standing in a semicircle on the slope, simultaneously giving hold and free space inside. I place the camera on the forest ground and start digging. I forget the camera is running. Later, when I look at the footage, I feel as if I am looking at myself with foreign eyes. I have completely forgotten that the technical eye was recording my actions. Now I look at myself, who feels as if she is alone, nothing but moment and action, and I understand for the first time what forgetting oneself means, because I can see it. I go to Marmorera a second time. I head to the first excavation site, leave the hiking trail into the brown silver forest, climb up the hill a bit, then lower again, catching my breath. The group of trees was not far from the path, and through the trees I was able to see the basalt with the road above. It takes me almost 2 hours to find the spot again. The slope is steep and looks different from the first visit. The vegetation has become lush, thick with wild garlic. The only possible section is not big, 50 meters in height and width. I stumble up and down the slope, gradually more driven and confused, and feel the weight of a labyrinth on my chest, even though everything seems clearly laid out in front of my eyes. I had printed out some photographs of the first excavation here, and by chance I have them with me. Among them is a still from the self-forgotten video. This picture serves me as a compass. I compare the trees in front of me with the ones in the photo and keep chasing up and down the slope. After a scrappy search without success, despite the picture, I agreed with myself to give up this object, to leave it completely to itself. I liked the idea. Shortly before I go back to the bus station, not far from the edge of the road, the group of larches appears. There it is, naturally and recognizable at first sight, with my sculpture buried in its earth. The following visit is unexpectedly crowded. A flock of sheep have been moved from one side of the fence to the other. On my last visit, the fence separated them from my group of trees. Now it connects them. With their spindly legs, the sheep kick loose rubber and undergrowth, eat away grass and bushes, and sink to the ground, bundled together, even in the heat. Sometimes they jump away, bleating. Mostly, they just stare at me motionless. This time, I find my group of trees without the help of a picture, but I still can't reach my object. Roughly 30 sheep sit exactly on the spot where my object is buried. I leave them. On the fourth visit, the sheep are done. It doesn't take me long to find the right trees. They are unchanged. Their surroundings have changed, however. A rock slide had come down and raised it around by a meter. Buried twice, and this time utterly unreachable, lies my piece of clay. It is late summer of 2020, 5.5 years after the first burial. My objects have dissolved, became landscape, images, words, thought. I sit at my desk and look at the balcony. There are 9 pots filled with soil, from which a birch, a beech, nettles, a willow, moss grass, umbrella mushrooms, and some unknown plants grow. I took a footful of soil from each place where an object had disappeared. All the plants growing now have incorporated a little something of my objects. They carry it within them, and I care for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Can you share? Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, we are already a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one one last or one question. Yeah, there are no questions in the chat. I mean, maybe for you, this process of becoming other, of which I have been speaking before in the other panel, seems to be very important. And you show this transformation of materials and their intertwinement. So can you tell us something about your references? Who or which, which theories also were important for you to develop this, your very open-minded artistic practice?
Well, I mean, some are old friends that I carry along with me since quite some time. That for instance, Malraux, which is a Musée Imaginaire, which doesn't seem to be very close to it at the moment, but it has to do something with context. And on a material part, of course, philosophers from, I mean, especially from Harman, from the speculative realism school in philosophy, they are somehow references, but not in either direction, not in an illustrative way. So it's more that I feel welcome in their thoughts, and I think they might feel welcome in my work.
That's interesting. It's really interesting to hear that there is also a lot about practice and about knowing other people and about just doing it, if I understand you well. Because I really thought that it has a lot to do with these theories of neo-materialism. So
I basically rather discovered those theories through my project, because I came into different circles and then suddenly I realized, it's going on now in different spheres.
But it's interesting because I teach too, and I see that exactly a lot of students have like an experimental situation, and just to wait, to give things time and to wait what will happen. So it's interesting to hear that you just do it, and and so things will become and emerge. So Lena and sorry Sarah, thank you so much. We have to end here. Thank you for this. And I don't know if Susanna is here. I didn't see her. Susanna? It seems a little bit maybe that, yes. Raja, can you tell something? Can it be that she mixed up the times? That, maybe Riga time and so on.
Do I have sound? And feedback? Yeah, well, I don't have any news from her.
So maybe we do it with we close without her. I think, but I mean, in a certain sense, I see now in all three presentations which we heard here, there is this aspect of resonance. That, for example, landscape is laughing in Lena's, as Lena talked in Ursula's work, it was also about triggering resonance and communications, and Sarah is exactly working with this, that there will be, that things flow, that organisms transform, and that landscape is an assemblage of living matter. So that's, to me, it resonates a lot to what we have been discussing also in the first panel. that landscape and organisms and matter becomes more and more something that is living organism, and that is relating to us, and we are relating to them, and seeking some kind of cooperation. So, yeah, I think from my point of view, it would be good to end with that. But Rasa, you have to say a little bit about the time, because we are just, we are until it should be ending now.
Yeah, that's very. Thank you very much, because in 15 minutes we will be switching to the performance, which will be taking place in YouTube channel. So you should go to YouTube from festival2020.rixc.org website. And also we will be streaming in Zoom, so you can also stay here. We will be taking in the stream, restreaming it. So this will be, there is a group, a digital dramaturgy lab from Toronto. So there are about 15 participants from all over the places who will be playing around the topic of artistic or artificial or artistic intelligence, like using some filters from the Zoom and some algorithms, and also the places where they are located, so geographically. So I think this is very interesting, just to have some look at this, how this all will be happening. And then, so this will be at 5 Riga time or 4 Swiss time. And at 6 Riga time, so the performance will be 45-50 minutes. And then at 6 Riga time, which is 5 Central European time, we will go to an exhibition opening. We also will have a representative, Mr. De Lucas from a Swiss embassy here, and maybe also a local audience. So, and then also Writers will give a first tour in English through the exhibition works. So some of you shortly saw in the video, but also yes, you can in more detail see follow the tour by one of the curators. Actually, Suzanne has showed up. If you have 5 minutes, if you like. So.
Okay, I'm really sorry. I probably mixed up with the time. I thought it would be at 5.
Yeah, Riga time. No?
So I did mix up with the time.
Yeah. So you have very, very short time, 5 minutes now. Or
okay.
Yeah.
I just saw your email. I'm really sorry that I mixed up with the time. I was ready to go for 5:30. So apologies to everyone.
So Susanna, do you want to show us something for 5 minutes?
I will probably need a lot longer than that, but I will focus on my project then. I will try to share the screen. Are you seeing the screen? Yeah?
No.
Not yet?
No. Yes.
Okay. Yeah?
Yes.
Are you seeing the slides? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, so the project that is being exhibited at ECODATA is called Wooferlands. And it takes its name from the Metamorphosis of Plants from Goethe. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You probably are also seeing my clothing on the back. I'm sorry. I just didn't have any time to mix up the time. I'm really sorry about this. I don't know what in the world happened. Goethe developed a concept for a top kind of archetypal plant, the Wooferlands. He looked at unusual methods and metamorphoses to which the individual parts of a plant adjusted themselves to living conditions and the environment. And one of these most interesting aspects on these studies were that they saw malformations of nature as being governed by extraordinary rules. So this is what I became interested in when I collaborated with the plant science team at the University of Sheffield. So they were studying the genetic blueprint of plant morphogenesis, and according to the researchers, this can lead to the redesign of plants that could influence climate and be more resilient to extreme weather patterns. Okay, so plants are very good adapters. They are very good at changing their physical form and structure to adapt to their environment. So this is duckweed, one of the most adaptable plants in the world. So the project that is being exhibited at ECODATA, Wooferlands, presents 4 plant archetypes, and they are illustrations for extreme weather conditions. So the illustrations were developed using a series of 2D and 3D existing software tools. And I also generated specific software code and algorithms based on Fleming's research. So, so these are the 4 plant archetypes that I designed. So this one is pretty much based on the cactus. They have the ability to adapt to dry environments, and they have increased capacity to store water. The archetype 2, it's based or is inspired on 2 things. One is the fractal dimensions of a cauliflower, which is 2.3, and then the other inspiration was the Daisy World by James Lovelock, in which he simulates a virtual planet in which is regulated by plants that are either black or white that can reflect or absorb the sunlight. Therefore, the plant is white and can reflect the sunlight, regulating warmer temperatures. Archetype number 3 has a unique perforated leaf that enables the chances of surviving under flooded conditions. And number 4 is a combination of a carnivorous plant with wheat. The reason why is because carnivorous plants can absorb nitrogen and phosphate, and they are quite essential for plant survival. So along with these illustrations, and I will not have time to show this unfortunately, we built an interactive tool that has quizzes, in-depth information about how the archetypes were designed, and even a section on Professor Andrew Fleming's research. So the digital tool has been used by the researchers and me on various occasions, specifically for exhibitions and events and workshops with the general people, public and young people. So young audiences find particularly this tool particularly more effective in terms of learning, and they find this a sort of better way than going to the materials of the exhibition per se. You also have the opportunity to kind of test your knowledge within the interactive tool. So moving on, my question through the presentation was, what role could design and designers play within the technological redesign of nature towards a sustainable future? And I would like to show two ways that I take, or two approaches that I take within my practice. So one is by nurturing and exploring symbiotic relationships with nature and natural systems, represented by the Bees Project, which uses the bees' extraordinary sense of smell to detect cancer in people's breath. And the second was demonstrated by Umfelens, is embracing a process philosophy approach that considers that there are no real boundaries between humans and the environment, and that all things are in constant state of flux. So both methods use speculative design, a speculative design approach that explores possibilities that hopefully contribute to the development of technological fluency and social awareness, and even, probably motivating political action. So I would like to finalize, and hopefully that could spark some debate and some questions. I would like to paraphrase the philosopher Tim Morton, which came up with the concept of dark ecology. We could, or we should not separate ourselves from nature by sanctifying it, and therefore making ourselves a foreigner, a strange and increasingly corrupt influence. So I will end up my presentation here. The project wouldn't be possible without the support of various people, so I would like to acknowledge them, and thank you very much, and apologies again for not being at the conference on time.
Susanna, may I ask you something? I don't know if I understood you well, but does this mean that you think in a certain way that plants like that could be designed? I mean, not in speculative design as you do, but maybe by genetic engineering and synthetic biology and so on.
Yes, I mean, that's what the whole project was based. The whole project was based in that genetic techniques research. So these are just possibilities or possible archetypes in which you can modify plants in order for them to have specific functions.
Yeah, that's maybe what I personally find the problematic thing, because I think in nature, if I may adopt this term now, in nature a plant always has many different senses and goals and aims. It's never only one. And I think that's the big difference to technological devices, that they usually, yes, they need, if you do something artificially, you have to concentrate on one thing. And this is a little bit what I see in your Urpflanzen models, that they try to concentrate on one A, but that if we perceive the history of technology, we can say that this is exactly the problem with technology, because it's always only one dimension, and it cannot, it can adopt the multiplicity and the complexity of nature.
I mean, it doesn't, I see where you're coming from, but I think that's what you need to start to visualize. Okay, you need to start somewhere. The technology is there, we are using those techniques, and we are using them not now. We are, we have selective breathing for many years. So, and I think the project is there to sort of generate a talk about how do we use these technologies. Okay, are they valid? Do we want to use these technologies in a way to mitigate climate change? So, I mean, one of the aspects, of the earlier aspects that I wanted to explore in the talk was the Revive and Restore project. Okay, that is using synthetic life and CRISP technology to revive an extinct species, which was the passenger pigeon. So, I mean, this is a project that is being developed since 2012. Technology is there.
Okay. Thank you, Susanna.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think we really have to finish.
Okay.
I appreciate your answer, it was clear. I'm
Okay.
sorry, because performance begins. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And thank you to everybody who remained until the end. Bye bye.